Well, ladies and gentlemen, not that long ago, Wargaming announced that missiles were coming to the game in a new temporary battle type, which for you newer players here, let me translate that for you. Wargaming is now publicly testing missiles in World of Warships. That's what that means. And you can get your grubby little hands on them, as I have, because today, Thursday, the 9th of October, the PT client has updated for update 14.10. You can play the new Shattered Time temporary battle type right now, missiles and all. And I have done just that. And that is what we're going to talk about in today's video. First off, I would encourage you guys to go ahead and check this out for yourselves. The PT client is available to everybody for the time that it's running, which is from today, the day of recording, Thursday, through, I believe, Monday. So I'd encourage you guys to download the PT client. You just go into your little Wargaming Center, click Download Additional Instance, and select the PT client. And from there, you can download the PT client and try these guys out for yourselves. And then afterwards, you can just delete it off your hard drive for the hard drive space. So let's talk about missiles, shall we? So, a couple things to note. The game mode, I believe they're trying to test out a couple of things here. One is a much, much bigger map. The map in this mode is truly massive. So they may be looking at, with adding in missile boats and maybe higher tiers with missile ships, maybe larger maps for these missiles to be used on, because obviously missiles have much further range than naval artillery, and a new respawn system where you get to select a grid coordinate where you can respawn once you do get sunk. So they're testing out a few things here, at least in my mind. So currently with, of course, the stats that we're going to be looking at here with these missiles and such, that's for this particular game mode. Obviously, they may tweak it one way or another as they go through development if they do wish to continue testing missiles after this temporary game mode runs its course. So, missiles, how do they work? Well, depending upon which ship you select for this game type, that determines which set of missiles you will get. Now, as far as like the type of missile, they're all labeled as harpoons, but they do have different stats depending upon which ship you select. There's a destroyer, there's a cruiser, and then there is a battleship that you can select. And the destroyer has 20-kilometer missiles, the cruiser has 25-kilometer missiles, and then the battleship has 40-kilometer missiles, which is absurd. So keep in mind, like on the mini map that you're looking at on the screen right now, that outer line, that's 40 kilometers away from my ship. So that really does give you a good idea of how big this map is. So I played the Valkyrie, which is in a gear that's been promoted to a super ship with the addition of a few sets of harpoon launchers onto her stern. Now, of course, there's some other things going on here, but of course, we're mainly focusing on the missiles. Obviously, the main battery guns are way different. The shells are traveling at like 1,200 meters a second. The Sigma seems to be like freaking 5 or something. There's like no dispersion on the guns and all that jazz. So, yeah, obviously, other things have changed. So just keep in mind that this isn't just a normal gear with some harpoon strapped to it. It has been souped up in other ways, shapes, and forms. But anyway, as far as the missiles go, which is of course what most of you are here for, so the way the missiles work is that you select them just like you would select any other additional armament. By default, they are key bound to the 4 key, and then you kind of pop up into kind of the top-down view that you get with the ASW planes. I think it's a little bit different. Of course, again, with the much larger map and the 40-kilometer range of the missiles, obviously it's a little bit higher. So then you get a what looks to be about a roughly 1 kilometer aiming circle. You click, and then the missiles launch. Now, each click launches one missile, and you've got about a 3-second cooldown time, or I guess reloading time, between your missiles. So if you really want, you can just sit there and just dump all your missiles, well, not really at once because of the 3-second cooldown time between launches, but it's only 3 seconds, so you can get them going pretty good if you just wait the 3 seconds between launches. So you can dump most of your missiles in a very short time if you really want to. So once your missiles have been launched, they head towards the area that you have selected on the map. Now, there's no type of indicator that stays behind, unlike the the ASW aircraft where you have that HUD that counts down until when the planes will arrive. There's none of that, so you don't really know where your missile's going. You got to remember what coordinate you clicked on the map. But anyway, they fly toward it, and the missiles that are currently being used, they travel at 400 and I believe 50 knots. 473 knots actually to the target. Once they get there, if there's a ship that has been spotted in that area, it will lock onto it and then just fly at it. It looks like it's just aiming for the dead center of the ship and with an impact the ship and do what looks like HE damage. It's a lot of damage for sure. The missile has a 28,000 alpha damage, which I did get pretty regularly using the missiles that the Valkyrie has. The cruisers missiles do 13,500, and then the destroyers missiles do 16,000 damage. And each of them are a little bit different, obviously, with the different ranges of the missiles. You know, some are traveling a little bit faster, some are traveling a little bit slower, but they are all, again, labeled as harpoons. So, you don't get Citadel ribbons, though, from these missiles, but I have seen, you know, them do just 28,000 damage before outright. And it appears to be treated like normal damage. So thankfully, it doesn't appear to be Citadel damage, where we can only regenerate a very small portion of it. It seems to just be average damage, and I think there's a fire chance in there too. It's not labeled in port as I'm looking at it right now, but I did get a fire after, well, I got a few fires after hitting some ships with missiles. It seems to be a pretty low fire chance though, so I think it's coded as HE damage at the moment. Now, you do have a limited number of missiles on your ship. At first, at least. So the Valkyrie has 16 missiles on board. That's what she starts out with. But you do have combat instructions where once you hit enemy targets with your main battery guns enough, you do get 4 more missiles. And in this mode, those combat instructions pop automatically. Now, is that because this is a large-scale mode that it's going to take you probably 20 minutes to go through this operation? That's probably more of what it's about. I don't think they would give that to ships in random battles. Because they feel like we get these missiles in random battles. Obviously, that's a little bit much. Because 28,000 damage to tier 10 and tier 9 ships would seem to be a little much with these missiles. But yeah, I'm hoping that's just something for this mode. Now, the missiles do have a detection range, and this is something that I was pretty confused about. Because the way it was explained in the dev blog is that when these missiles are spotted, our ship has automatic defenses that would try and intercept these missiles. I didn't see any of that really happening when I was playing this mode, and I made sure a couple of times that these missiles were spotted when they were coming toward my ship. I didn't press anything, and nothing really happened. The missile just slammed into the side of my ship, and I took damage from it. So, yeah, you do have the, what are they called? The emergency repair or the emergency damage teams or whatever. It's the consumable that they were trying out in the CV rework, where defense systems where it reduces the amount of damage you take by 90%. I don't know if they scrapped the automatic defense idea and went with these instead. I'm not sure, but you pop in for a limited amount of time, you're taking only 10% of the damage that you would have taken otherwise, so there don't really seem to be any type of automated defense systems, at least in this iteration of testing, which obviously kind of sucks. But that's what they're doing right now. So, yeah. How do they feel? Honestly, in the mode, it was pretty easy to use, and it worked. Granted, I'm just slinging these things at bots from across the map, and they're slinging them back at me, too. They are pretty ridiculous with the amount of damage that they can bring in. I mean, I think by the end of this battle, I had like almost 1 million damage done, and most of that was just from missiles, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Honestly, there were several points in the match watching the background right now where I was just like, oh wait, yeah, I have main battery guns. I really need to be using my main battery guns because I need more missiles, which is really the only reason that you would really use your main battery guns in this particular mode, unless something does come within your minimum range, because you do have a minimum launch range, which was I think like 10-ish kilometers, like just outside of 10-ish kilometers is the minimum launch range for the Valkyrie, so you do have to be mindful about that. But it's not really, I mean, there's a little bit of skill involved, because of course if you're trying to select roughly a kilometer wide-ish area where a ship is going to be, where you're launching missiles at them from 40 kilometers away, yeah, you gotta have a pretty good idea of, where the guy's gonna go, how's he gonna maneuver, this, that, and the other. But I mean, like, other than that, your missile just slams into their side and does a ton of damage, and yeah, that's about it. So it's not overly engaging gameplay, shall we say. I mean, if you've used the ASW airstrike, it's pretty much that, but instead of summoning a Catalina, you're summoning a harpoon that's being launched off of your ship. And the terrain does very much matter. I tried, lobbing these missiles over islands, and if the ship is close enough to the island, the missile, will just fly into the island. So there's that. I don't really see much in the way of dodging these missiles. They mentioned that in the devlog that you could potentially dodge them. I guess maybe if you're in the destroyer and you're like hard turning over, going full tilt ahead. Yeah, but other than that, it's just kind of like, if you're lucky enough or, skilled enough to predict, where that ship's going to be in a few seconds, it's pretty much free damage, right? I don't like the counter to it, which is you just push Y, and for 20-something seconds, you take, only 10% of the damage that the missile was going to do to you. I much prefer the system that they were talking about where, yeah, if the missile's spotted, your ship's defense systems will attempt to shoot it down. And, that could be Sea-Wiz, or that could be some really accurate gunners on the flak, on the flat cannons. But, and eventually as the battle goes on, as your aim out's getting broken, your defenses obviously are weaker, so then maybe some missiles could get through. That sounds like a much preferable system to just, again, pressing Y and, taking less damage. So that's yeah. So what this feels like to me is that they've spent a lot of time with just making a very simple way to use the missiles, and they're kind of struggling with figuring out how to best counter them. I don't think it needs to be this consumable where you just take less damage. Again, I think it needs to be, proper A defenses, Sea-Wiz defense systems, and things like that would make the most sense, or, intercepting missiles and such. Obviously, well, hopefully, if these things do make it to the base game, they would start out with, like, really early missile boats, right, that only carried a handful of missiles, maybe having, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 at the most, for the first round of missile ships, if that, right? I think that would be the way to start, rather than going, full on, like, Arleigh Burke, right? Obviously, too, with, this system, there's no way. I do not believe in any, I give Wargaming the benefit of the doubt a lot. But look, Wargaming, you cannot just toss this into, like, the super ship category and call it a day. Because there's no way, a Yamato, an Iowa, that's not a modernized Iowa, has any chance against ships with missiles. At least not to this level. Obviously, this is for a temporary PvE event at the moment. They're testing the mechanics. I promise you they are. So, yeah, the stats are probably not going to be exactly the same whenever they do wind up getting to the main game. But, like, this whole system of missile defense and stuff, I just don't see how that can work with, World War II era ships. So, hopefully, like I've mentioned before, this will be like a tier 11, 12, 13, 14 thing maybe. I think that's the best way for Wargaming to handle this going forward. But yeah, they're here. You can try them out for yourselves, get your hands on them. Like I said, they're pretty kooky, they're pretty insane, as is right now. But I would strongly encourage you guys to check them out for yourselves, so you guys can, get your best feeling for, how these things are going to work. And sure, you can sit here, you can watch this video, you can watch someone else's video, you can watch a stream about missiles and such. But the best way to experience them for yourselves is to, of course, try it out for yourself. So I encourage you guys to download the PT server and check this out for yourself. So guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think about these missiles and all that jazz. I'm sure this will be a fun comment section. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.